everyone, and welcome. We're diving into something really cool today, the Enneagram. Specifically, we're going to be looking at type 4, the individualist. And to make it even more interesting, we're using the public life of Spanish singer Amaia Montero to, see it all in action.
Oh, I like that. Using someone like Montero, someone we kind of know from their music and all that, is such a smart way to make these personality types real.
Right. It's like Enneagram meets pop culture. But before we go any further, just want to throw out there, we are not diagnosing anyone today,
Yeah.
okay? Especially not based on what we see publicly. We're here to get a grip on those type 4 tendencies, not slap a label on Amaia Montero.
Exactly. It's more like using her story as a lens, like holding up a mirror to type 4 and saying, hey, does any of this resonate?
I love that. Okay, so for anyone who might not be familiar, who is Amaia Montero?
Yeah, tell us about her.
So picture this. Imagine Adele and Coldplay had a Spanish baby, and that baby made music for those late nights when you're feeling all the feels. That's Amaia Montero. She was the lead singer of this band, La Reja de Van Gogh. They were massive in the Spanish music scene, known for their super emotional songs.
Okay, yeah, I can see the connection to type 4 already. Expressing those deep emotions through art, right? That's classic.
Totally. And then in 2007, she went solo, which, again, very type 4, wanting to forge their own path. And she's had some, very public ups and downs, makes her an even more interesting case study.
It's like we've got this real-life example to help us unpack all the layers of the Enneagram. So speaking of, can you give us the rundown on type 4? What makes them tick?
You got it. Give us the basics. What do they crave? What are they most scared of?
At their very core, 4s are all about finding themselves, their unique essence, in a world that often feels like it's trying to shove them into a box. They crave that self-expression, that authenticity, and they often find it through things like art, just like you were saying with Montero and her music.
So embracing their individuality, that's huge for them. But what about their fears? What are they most afraid of?
Deep down, they're terrified of being flawed, insignificant, ordinary. It's another face in the crowd. Imagine feeling lost in a sea of people, desperate to stand out, to be seen for the unique soul you believe you are. That's the kind of existential angst a 4 might grapple with.
Wow, yeah, that's intense. So much introspection going on there. Is that where that whole melancholy thing comes in that I've heard about type 4s?
100%. They're constantly reflecting, analyzing their emotions, searching for meaning in every experience, which, yeah, can lead to some melancholy, maybe even a bit of self-criticism at times. But that same depth of feeling is also what fuels their art, their creativity, their ability to connect with others on such a deep level.
It's like this double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Intense emotions that can be both painful and incredibly beautiful.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting because, get this, we found this YouTube video by Antonio Fernandez Guerrero. He does these Enneagram analyses, and he did a whole breakdown of Amaia Montero as a type 4.
Oh, wow. So he's actually saying, based on what he's observed, he thinks she's a type 4. Okay, tell me more. What kind of stuff is he looking at to come to that conclusion?
He goes deep, like he analyzes her lyrics, her interviews, even her social media. And he connects all of that back to the core motivations of a type 4.
Okay, I'm hooked already. Let's start with the music. What does he say about that?
So he argues that her music is like a masterclass in type 4 themes. He points out how she sings about longing, searching for meaning in relationships, the kind of bittersweet nature of life, all very type 4 stuff.
So it's not just surface level pop music. He's saying her lyrics actually reveal something deeper about her as a person.
Exactly. Like if you want to understand the heart of a type 4, listen to Amaia Montero's music. It's full of that raw emotional honesty that this type is known for.
I love that. Okay, we've got to unpack this more. What else does he say?
Okay, so he talks about this one song, A Nosotras, which means to us in English. And there's this line she sings, we build ourselves up from pieces of broken dreams.
Yeah.
He's like, this is so type 4, taking those painful experiences, those heartbreaks, and turning them into something beautiful,
Wow. Yeah, that's deep. And it fits with what we were saying about type 4s and creative expression, right? It's like their pain becomes their art.
Totally. And it's not even just the lyrics, it's how she sings it. You can hear that vulnerability, that raw emotion in her voice, and it hits you in the feels. Very type 4.
Okay, I'm convinced about the music, but what about her life? Outside of being a musician, does this Antonio guy find type 4 stuff there too?
He does. He talks about how she's been really open about her struggles with depression, self-esteem, body image, all things that he connects to that core type 4 fear of being flawed, not good enough.
Right, right. So he's saying these public struggles might be coming from a deeper place, like from those core fears we talked about.
Exactly. He even quotes some interviews where she talks about feeling like she doesn't belong, like she's searching for something more. And that whole feeling of being different, not fitting in, that's something a lot of type 4s relate to.
It's almost like they're wired to feel things more intensely, which can be a gift, but it can also be really tough. So, where does social media fit into all of this?
Totally. And yeah, Antonio actually argues that a type 4's relationship with social media, it's complicated. Like on the one hand, you've got this amazing platform for self-expression, right? For connecting with other people who get you, who feel that same differentness. But it can also become this like breeding ground for comparison, for needing validation, for making those feelings of inadequacy even worse.
Oh, for sure. It's like a double-edged sword again. So, what does he say about Amaya Montero's social media?
Yes, she's a perfect example of this duality, like sometimes she's super open, super vulnerable. She'll talk about her mental health, her body image struggles, and it's really powerful for her fans to see that.
Totally. Like she's using her platform to break down stigmas, let people know they're not alone in those struggles.
Exactly. But then there are other times when her posts are, I don't know, more impulsive, maybe even a little erratic. And he connects that back to the type 4 tendency to want attention, even if it's negative attention, as a way of feeling seen.
That's really interesting because it makes you question your assumptions, right? Like
Okay.
what we might see as attention-seeking behavior could actually be a cry for connection, for validation.
Yes. And this ties in perfectly with something we touched on earlier. Remember social shame with Claudio Naranjo.
Yes, the other Enneagram expert. Yeah.
Okay. So Antonio actually references Naranjo's work, suggesting that Montero's behavior, especially online, might be linked to this idea of social shame that's often associated with type 4s.
Okay, yeah. Remind me about social shame again. What exactly is it and how does it connect to what we've been talking about with Amaya Montero?
So social shame, it's this deep-seated feeling, right, of not being good enough, of being like fundamentally flawed. Naranjo says it's like carrying this inner shame that's all about how you think other people see you.
So it's not just shame about something you did, it's shame about who you are.
Yes. And for type 4s, this social shame can show up as a constant need for approval, a fear of being ordinary, easily forgotten. They might even, without realizing it, seek out negative attention as a way of confirming those fears. Like, see, I told you I wasn't worthy of love.
Whoa, that's heavy. It's almost like they're sabotaging themselves.
It can seem that way, but it's not intentional.
Yeah.
It all comes from this place of deep insecurity, this longing to be truly seen and understood.
So how does this connect back to Maya Montero specifically? Are we saying her ups and downs, her behavior on social media could be because of this social shame?
It's definitely possible. Think about it. If she's dealing with this belief that she's not good enough, it makes sense that she might look for validation from others, even in unhealthy ways. And it could also explain why she's so open and vulnerable about her struggles, even when it opens her up to criticism. It's like she's saying, this is me, flaws and all. Can you accept me anyway?
Oh, wow. That's such a different way of looking at it. Like she's turning her pain outward as a way to connect with people who might be feeling the same way.
Exactly. And Ranji would say this is where the potential for growth is. Once a type 4 realizes these patterns, how this social shame might be driving their behavior, they can start to challenge those beliefs and find healthier ways to get their needs met.
This reminds me of something else we hear about with type 4s, that whole self-sabotaging thing. Could that be connected to social shame too?
Totally. Naranjo would say self-sabotage is often a way for type 4s to unconsciously prove their negative beliefs about themselves right.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, so imagine a type 4 who's incredibly talented but constantly doubts their abilities. They might procrastinate on a big project, unconsciously setting themselves up to fail, which then just reinforces that belief. See, I'm not good enough.
Oh, man. It's like this vicious cycle.
Exactly. But again, it all comes back to awareness. Once you see the pattern, you can start to break free.
This is so fascinating. Okay, before we go too far down this rabbit hole, can you just bring it back to Antonio Fernandez Guerrero's analysis of Amaya Montero?
Of course. So Antonio, he doesn't come right out and say social shame in his video, but everything he observes about her, the lyrics, the interviews, her social media, it all lines up with what Naranjo was talking about. And by understanding this deeper level of the type 4 experience, it's like we can see her public persona in a whole new light. It's not about excusing her behavior, but understanding where it might be coming from.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle. We've got the Enneagram basics, Amaya Montero's story, and now Naranjo's insights on social shame, self-sabotage. So, like, how does it all fit together? What's the takeaway here? It's like, We took a deep dive right into the heart of Type 4 with Amaia Montero as our guide. We talked about wanting to be seen as unique, that fear of being just another face in the crowd, and how all of that can play out in their art, their relationships, even, like you said, their Instagram posts. And then there's that whole social shame thing. It gives you a whole new perspective on things.
Yeah, it's not about the behavior itself, it's what's underneath it,
Yeah,
the why.
totally. Okay, so zooming out a bit, we've talked a lot about Amaia Montero. But what about Type 4 in general? What can we all take away from this, whether we're a Type 4 ourselves or we love someone who is?
Empathy, that's the big one. Type 4s, they feel things so deeply, and they might express those feelings in ways that other types just don't get.
So instead of judging, try to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that, yeah, those big feelings can be a lot sometimes. But underneath, you've got this well of creativity, sensitivity, a real desire for genuine connection.
Which are all amazing qualities, but like we've been saying, they can also lead to some struggles.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where self-awareness comes in. For type 4s, if you can start to recognize your patterns, your triggers, those core fears that might be driving the bus, that's huge.
Self-awareness is key. What about for those of us who, we're not Type 4, but we want to support the Type 4s in our lives? Any advice?
Just create that safe space for them. Let them be themselves without judgment. Let them know you see them, you hear them, you value their perspective, even when it's messy.
Meet them where they're at. Don't try to change them.
Exactly. And remember, type 4s, they often communicate through their art, whether it's music, writing, whatever. Pay attention to what they're creating. It's a window into their soul.
So powerful. I love that. It's like understanding Type 4. It's not just about personality types. It's about understanding people.
Yes. And isn't that what the Enneagram's all about? It's not about putting people in boxes. It's about understanding each other better,
Yeah.
having more compassion.
Love that. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Type 4, and we'll see you next time.